Do that, we're going to take another look at a trio of famous Ozarkers. And now, unlike Junior Cobb, our last famous Ozarker, these people were actually nationally famous at one point, or legitimately nationally famous at one point. If you were of a certain age, you would remember these folks and recognize them. As you can see, that's a pretty old picture, so we're not of that certain age. But if you had been around in the 1920s and 30s, you certainly would have recognized these people. And we're talking about the three people on the right, not the one in the ticket booth or the other, whatever is going on with that person. And so who do you think these are?
Looks like Will Rogers on the front.
Well, the same, you got the era right, the Will Rogers 1920s and 30s. Actually, the answer is up there. The Weaver Brothers and Elviry. You see the board over on the left. The Weaver Brothers and Elviry. That was their act. That was their stage name, basically. They are. This is June Weaver, who went by Elviry on stage. That's Leon Weaver, who was Abner on stage. And then that's Frank Weaver, who was Cicero. That was his stage name. And they were a vaudeville group. They actually had a whole cast of actors and musicians that they traveled the country with. At one time, their troupe was known as the Arkansas Travelers. But they were usually billed as the Weaver Brothers and Elviry, and then they had a bunch of other acts with them. But in the 1920s and 30s, they traveled around the country on the vaudeville circuit and putting on shows. They even went over to Europe and did several shows in different European countries, and were one of the most famous acts of their day. And then in the 1930s, they got into movies. And they ended up filming probably about a dozen movies after a while. And it may say on the next screen up here. No, just a series of Depression-era films. But in the late 1930s and early 40s, they did a number of movies. These were the old B movies of the days. I think they filmed most of their movies with Republic Studio. And these were movies that were often shown before the main feature, the feature film. But they were very popular movies, especially amongst rural audiences and small town audiences around the country, because they had to do with kind of working class themes and things like that. But the Weaver Brothers were from Christian County, just to our south. Elviry was not, but she had married into the family. And when I say married into the family, she was at one time married to Leon and at one time married to Frank. She really liked the Weaver Brothers. And that was, but they, even through divorces and marrying brothers and all that kind of stuff, the group stayed together as an act and were very, very popular in the 1920s and 30s. And this, more than likely, this picture dates from their pre-movie days when they were still on the traveling circuit and giving shows, live shows around the country. So that's their story. I bet somebody had heard of the Weaver Brothers, or maybe not. All right, they're. You can. I've got 2 or 3 of their movies. I think they're pirated DVDs. They say they look like it, and I didn't do it, but you buy stuff on eBay and you never know what you're going to get, And but every once in a while you can catch a Weaver Brothers movie on like an old on Turner Classic Movies or something like that, and they're all black and white. And they were musicians, so the movies and their act had a lot of music in it. And what they were known for, especially Leon Weaver, was playing homemade instruments. Like he would play a saw and just different, just kind of silly stuff. And so, that's the Weaver brothers.